Good evening. This is City of Groton Special Committee of the Whole meeting for Monday, April 19th, 2021. Clerk Patrick, please call the roll.
Present are Mayor Keith Hedrick, Deputy Mayor Guinevere Depot, Councilors Lisa McCabe, Rashad Carter on Zoom, Stephen Sheffield. I believe that's all for the council.
That's correct.
Correct. Finance Director Ron Uhas, Clerk Deborah Patrick, excuse is Councilor Paul Norris.
Okay, thank you. All right, the referrals, 690, city budget presentations. The first one is sanitation, and that is on page 73. So with that, I'll ask Director Robarge, Bill Robarge, to come forward to talk about the sanitation budget. And do you need anybody else at this point yet, Bill?
I have Mr. Beaker and Ms. Camo here if needed.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Good evening. So speaking to the sanitation budget, and that's inclusive of collection, transportation, disposal of all municipal solid waste and recyclable materials as mandated by the state of Connecticut. Staff is also responsible for responding to citizens' requests, questions, and concerns. Okay. This year's budget has an increase of 10.25%, and that is mainly caused by an increase of $250,000 in capital, and that's to purchase a new vehicle. The intent to purchase a new vehicle for that. Okay. And going over to personnel services, and that's on page 76, if you wish to follow. In regards to that, we have a small increase in labor costs, and that's union rates, and also for medical insurance. And the total of the two add up with a variance from last year's budget to a little bit under $9,000 increase. Operating expenses, there are three items there that are significant. So the first one is contractual services, and that's repairs to our existing vehicles. And the increase there is from $6,000 up to $9,000, so a $3,000 increase there. The second larger item is general materials and supplies, and you'll see a $10,000 value there, and that's to purchase totes for trash and recyclables for our residents. Okay. We purchase them up front, and then we sell them to the residents. And the last big item is vehicles, and I'd mentioned I'd speak to that. So that is a $250,000 line item to the reserve for vehicles. If you note, 2020 we had $50,000. 2021 was another $150,000 to the reserve. Okay, and this year will be $250,000. And quickly to speak to that, I'll speak to the summary, give you guys a quick summary of that. So current status, we collect trash 5 days a week, and we collect recyclables 4 days a week. And in doing that, we need one full-time vehicle for the recyclables. That vehicle there is a 2014. It's fairly good shape still. And we need another 3 vehicles to collect trash. So that we have a 2015 vehicle. That's the newest one that we have in the fleet. Unfortunately, that one's been in the garage for over a month. So when that happens, we unfortunately have to cut back and use the alternate truck. So we have 3, as I stated. The newest is 2015. The other 2s are 2007 and a 2004. So they're coming up on 18 years old and 15 years old. The labor, so I ran a report and I ran some numbers for the labor that we spent to maintain the 4 vehicles that we have for trash and recyclables. So across the 1-year time cycle, we spent $7,000 in labor, and that's based off of 5 weeks' salary for one of my technicians just to maintain those 4 vehicles. And parts and contracted resources to also support those 4 vehicles were $22,000 for the 1 year. Okay. If the recyclables truck fails, I have to take one of the trash trucks and utilize that to run the recycling, so I can't wait. Okay. And on holidays, because of the increase in the volume, we also use the recyclables truck, plus we use a trash truck to collect all the recyclables. So it's busy. So in short, we'll always need four vehicles in the fleet. So it's 3 plus 1. 1 is the backup. So 3 full-time, 1 as needed. And oftentimes we need it. As I mentioned, the newest truck has been away from us for over a month. Currently, so if you look at those 3 line items, right? So we currently have the 50 from 2000 and the 150,000 from 2001. So we have $200,000 in a revenue line item right now for a new vehicle. With the additional request for this year of the extra 450, we will then have $450,000 in revenue. The cost of a new truck is in between $220,000 and $300,000. Again, we have 450. Unfortunately, delivery time for a new vehicle is 18 months, so it's a year and a half. If we place the order now, we've got another year and a half before we get the vehicle. The backlog and construction of the new vehicle is pushing us out. My intent, so the vision that I have for this year's, if approved, immediately place the order for the new truck. So that's going to take us, it's going to, take a big chunk away. We'll trade in the oldest truck, and that's the 2000 and, so it'll either be one of the two, either the 2004 or the 2007 vehicle. We'll trade that in. We're looking at a trade-in value of between $10,000 and $15,000. Balance in the reserve after the vehicle is purchased will then go to $150,000. Okay. Fiscal year, my plan, fiscal year for 2022-23 is to request another $250,000. And the plan then would be to, look at purchasing a second vehicle. That way we'll have the 2015, 2 newer vehicles, and with the purchase of the second vehicle, we would still have a reserve line item of $100,000. Okay? Questions on that at all?
I'm sorry, let's go with Councilor McCabe first.
You said that the 2015 has been in service for a month now. Are the other 2 trucks doing?
They're both operable. One of them we struggle a little bit with. So the 2015 vehicle, that one's had some electronics problems, and they were awaiting parts with COVID and the backlog of that. So we've really been impacted with that being away. And it's been a little bit over a month. So we're using the 2 older vehicles right now, full time. That's it.
Deputy Mayor Depot.
Thank you for that very thorough explanation. So the question is, so once we've replaced these 2 vehicles, which you're intending to do fiscal year 2023 with
Correct.
the additional 250, the fiscal year 2024, you're saying the reserve is going to go back down to 100,000?
We will have a balance of $100,000.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So the balance will be 100,000. So what is your intent to put in there annually? Because at that point, we'll have the 2 newer vehicles. So what will be the requirement to have in there per year, or have in the budget request per year to make sure that we're on schedule to keep replacing them in a timely manner?
Yeah, great question. So just looking at the 4 vehicles, right, for trash and recyclables. So once we purchase that second new one, we will have 3 very reliable vehicles. The recyclable truck is, I think, a 2012. At that time, I'd like to look at, take a solid decision and kind of look at it. So we may be good for a couple of years, but I'm thinking maybe get down to like a $50,000 incremental, just to get us in a safe spot, so that we always have the money if needed. So if we take, if we lose a truck, we're really out of business, and the customers really expect the service. So it's quite impactful to just be down even for one day.
One of the challenges that we've had here, and we've talked about, is having a fleet fund, but right now we don't have one. So to go to a fleet fund, you would have to put aside money for the fleet fund, plus buy the vehicles that you need now. And that's one of the challenges we have. In the fire department, you're going to see that we put away some money for the fire truck for the future, and we'll get into that later. But what Director Robarts wants to do, I think is a good idea. If we could put anything aside, we do that, because as long as we have a surplus to be able to do that. Right now, we can support that. But there may come a time with the taxes and things like that where we're not able to do that. But if we can start funding that and getting that money set aside in a lockbox, if you will, then that will help us further down the road so that we don't have to bond things like that, right? Because actually, a good rule of thumb on bonding is you don't like to bond less than $750,000. So so I think this is a good approach. Deputy Mayor Depot.
I just wanted to say, I really like changing our approach in all the departments this way. I think that all the departments are kind of moving towards trying to be a little more fiscally responsible, so we're not having such ebbs and flows of our budgets. Because that's what was happening before, is we needed a vehicle, so now we need $500,000 to buy a vehicle. It's not really, it's hard to swallow that every year. So I'm happy that we're kind of trying to get on track when we have the money available.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on sanitation? Okay, hearing none, we're going to move to building maintenance on page 78.
So, okay, public buildings, and inclusive of this is the responsibility for maintaining and upkeep of our public buildings. The increase for this year is 1.34%. And going over to page 80, if you look at the light items, so in short, the increase is based off of, it's the same staff, no change in staff. The increase is solely a little bit of material, and then increase on insurance and the salary, with the unions. Other than that, it's pretty flat line.
Questions on building and maintenance? Okay, hearing none, we will move on to fire. Thank you, Bill.
Okay.
Thank you, Heidi. Thank you, Steve. Okay, Chief Tompkins. This starts on page 58.
Hi, good evening. So, yes, page 58 starts my budget. It really gets into it on page 60, but on 59, you'll see a 1.55% increase over last year. And as we go through the items, you'll see the biggest increase is $50,000 in the reserve fund, which is partly what we just you were just talking about. So for us, for our reserve fund, we have money put aside for our Scott bottles. We started a couple years ago because they only have a certain service life, and they'll be due in approximately 4 years. We'll have to replace all of them. So that'll be around $40,000. So last year we put $10,000 aside. This year, $10,000 aside. So we'll be able to buy those outright when the time comes. And then we had $140,000 for vehicles. We do have small vehicles. My vehicle is due to be replaced. And then you'll also see we have a pickup truck and another expedition that we run to medical calls. But the biggest expense, obviously, is the fire trucks. New engine costs somewhere $800,000. A new ladder truck is $1.7 million. So we're looking at $2.5 million total. So they last 20 to 25 years. If you put aside $100,000, you would be good. There have been years we haven't been able to do that, but the last couple of years we have, and the mayor's, because we have some money, put an extra $50,000 in there. I had requested $150,000. He boosted it up to $200,000 to try and make up for some of the lower years. So that fund is doing pretty well right now, I think, for the future of replacing those trucks. Farther up, we tried to keep everything as flat as we could, as far as training, utilities, fire services, facilities. We do a lot of ordering. My brother, Captain Tompkins, does the ordering, and he's frugal. So the guys complain because the paper towels are, recycled, but he saves a lot of money on that, so I appreciate that. One of the big numbers you'll see, 3/4 of the way down, heart and hypertension, only requesting $50,000 this year instead of 75. That number is a guesstimate, but we had one widow who was receiving a pension because her husband passed from a heart attack many, many years ago. She unfortunately passed, and so her monthly pension will no longer be paid. So that saved about $25,000 in that account, and that's why that came down. Other than that, everything is fairly flat, and if you have any questions on any specific line items, I'd love to answer them.
Council probably remembers that last year, we sent a truck up to Minnesota for repair with a cracked frame, and there were some other things that were identified, and we had to repair that. So the good news is that truck is repaired. The bad news is that with the extension of the life of that truck, now there's another truck, and they both expire, they're both useful service life is within a year to 18 months from each other. So that's one of the reasons that I wanted to put more money here, is if they were staggered by like 5 years or more, then we might be okay. But now that their end of useful life is within 18 months of each other, my concern was if we don't start putting money aside now or don't increase it now, then we'll get to where we're gonna have to bond that in order to have it. And so, this is us thinking about paying the bills 10 years from now. And sometimes councils don't have that foresight, but I know this council has in the past, and I'm asking that we continue to do that with this budget here. So that's why we did what we did there with the increase. Plus now, with the fees that we have from our major contractor here, defense contractor, we're able to do it, and we can still put the money set aside and not raise taxes. So why not take advantage of that now, so that later on down the road, we don't have to worry about paying taxes or have to take out a large bond, and then you got to worry about debt service. So that's why we did what we did. Any questions for Chief Tompkins on the budget? Okay, we're good. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
All right, so where am I? Let me get to my agenda. With that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Whoops, I don't say aye. Sorry, you guys say aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. We are adjourned. The next meeting will be the mayor and council meeting at 7:30. Thank you.